Giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem HaRachakodash. And double honors to our apostles and elders, her great millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully elect. So as you see brothers doing response videos to this united gathering done by Sakari San Diego and Vocab Malone. Now, when you just watch or even a portion of it, from a logical standpoint, it makes no sense. From a spiritual standpoint, it makes no sense. But if you're grown in the scriptures, then you understand what all this was all about. And just like even the elder said, like even in the lesson here at the beginning, he said this is just because this man with the do-rag on, sitting across the table from Vocab, a part of Sakari, just wants to be important. And exactly, and anybody can see that. And the danger that lies with that is when you every time if you ever want to operate outside of the scriptures, when you step outside this barrier, right, the walls of the scriptures, the protection, you are now open to the wiles of the devil. So all we got to say to you all is, okay, you let the devil in. So now be prepared to feel the devil's wrath when it creeps upon you. You have absolutely no scripture to justify what you're doing here. It is simply the will of man. The goal behind it is to be spoken well of and to be important. As the book of Ezra chapter 4 says, now you call yourself a scholar. You guys boasting in your scholarship. You boast in your titles like chief priest, captain this, captain that. That's why when Paul talked about titles, they had to be actually vetted properly, because anybody now just take these titles, but they're not applying what's written. There's no scripture to justify anything that you just done right there, sitting down with the devil. You only do it to seek to gain some type of personal or financial gain, but it's completely against the scriptures. Ezra 4 says, now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the temple, that the captivity, getting ahead of myself. Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, such as Vocab Malone, we know that this third temple is spiritual. He sees the building of it, therefore he's moved with wrath. By all means, he seeks to hinder our building and really to destroy us. Sitting down talking about some I genuinely believe vocab that you're doing what you're doing out of love or something like that. Like I genuinely believe that you care about it or something like that. That's just you either being willfully blind and ignorant, or you just flat out don't know what you're involved in whatsoever at all. Because nowhere in the scriptures that our leaders willfully chose to sit down with the devil who seeks to overthrow us. For what exactly? To get some common ground? What kind of common ground? What kind of common ground do you seek to achieve? The only thing you're seeking to achieve is to gain some type of accolades and more opportunities that you can sit down in front of the camera and gain a name for yourself. Who do you think you're fooling? The danger is you have now operated and moved outside of the scriptures, outside of the counsel of the Lord. So now you have opened the door to be exposed to whatever wiles the devil throw at you. Now you're playing the devil's game, because the devil obviously is going to look for ways to infiltrate, and you're going to open the door just so that you can get some type of gain out of it. Well, when you read the scriptures, every man that ever did that did not have a good ending. Right? Verse 2. Then they came to Zerubbabel and the chief of the fathers and said unto them, let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do. and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Assur, which brought us up hither. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our power, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord Yahweh God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, have commanded us. So the question is, if these scholars, these priests, chief priests, that they're so scholarly it comes to the scripture, the question is, why wasn't this the answer that they have given to Vocab Malone, the devil? They don't have a scripture justifying what they did. They did it solely off of personal interest, which means you have now, you're moving outside of the scriptures now. So now you are open the door for all the wiles of the devil to creep in, and wherever it ends up, wherever it ends you all up is what you deserve. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 18. Then I told them of the hand of my power, which was good upon me, as also the king's word that he has spoken unto me. And they said, Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn and despised us, and said, What is this thing that ye do? Will ye rebel against the king? Then answered I them and said unto them, The God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we, his servants, will arise and build. But ye have no portion, no right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. So why wasn't this Captain Ties? Why wasn't that his answer towards Vocab Malone? Nobody in them had any sense to quote scriptures? You're going to let the devil in and sit down with the devil, and guess what? When you hear them talking, no scriptures. So this is just a move I want to present me. I want this to be about me and the type of person that I am. Upset because he didn't give you a hug, and talking about he should love me regardless, all this other stuff. This is a very weak move by Sakari. Here it is. We have the truth. We have the understanding of the 100% of the scriptures. These devils are coming at us at every single angle just to hinder our building. And you're going to let them in and sit down and talk with them? Like you're going to lower yourself to talk to these Edomites, these devils, these Christians. You stooped yourself all the way to their level just so that you can hope to gain some type of name. This is a very weak move and very foolish move. We have the truth. What do we need them for? We don't need them. So you're going to completely lower yourself all the way and really abase yourself for them, to give them an opportunity and an angle to try to come in and compromise your whole deal. Because at the end of it, here's the thing. At the end of that discussion that y'all had, you're not going to change your stance and he's not going to change his stance. So what was it all for? In his opinion, it was worth it because he got his name out there. He got to be recognized and he can do more conversations. So he compromised his group and his brothers so that he can gain some type of notoriety, all with the approval of their chief leader, Alazar. And that's really because he wants to be well spoken of. He gets off on that. Proverbs 11:14, it says, where no counsel is, the people fall. Who counseled you to do that? Your leader? Well, your leader is a child left to himself. Your leader doesn't seek counsel his damn self. So you guys are just doing whatever you want. You don't have scriptures to justify anything you've done. You literally lowered yourself. You went from having the upper ground to being basically on the line with the enemy. You've drawn yourself out Whereas the devil had no way of getting to you. You drawing yourself out, and now you're completely exposed. Because when you follow what the scripture says, and if you just gave answer like our forefathers did to these heathen that's trying to hinder our building, you would be good. But instead you let them in. So it says, where no counselor is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. And the counselors we have are the forefathers, our forefathers, the answers they gave, the prophets, and the scriptures. And you also have the wise men. I mean, the men who got the truth, like the apostles and elders. And the apostle elders been already said, you should have no dealings with vocab. He seeks only to overthrow. And they know that. But any opportunity that arouses them to keep their name afloat, to get some type of notoriety, to get praise, they'll compromise the scriptures for that and deviate from the course that the Lord set up for us for that. And that's why it never works out for them, because they're operating, they're instead of doing the will of Yahweh, they have inserted the will of man, and the will of man will come to naught, as the scripture says. But the scriptures is our counselor for safety. We do what the scriptures say. Your answer should be no. Simply no. We don't want to talk. We don't want to talk. We don't want to talk. You have nothing to do with what we do. We ourselves. This is all about us. And if you're going to start the video by saying, I do believe he's going to serve us in the kingdom. If you believe that, what are you talking to him for then? What if you admit, yeah, you're going into slavery, what is there to talk about now? The scripture says none of the wicked shall understand. This is just to be important. But it's a dangerous move, because now you let the devil in. So now you're openly exposed to whatever the devil has in store for you. And that's what happens when you operate outside of the scriptures. Because when you just do what the scripture says, that's safety. As it says, in multitude of counselors, there is safety. The Lord gave you the instructions as to how to move and operate. You're not supposed to be unequally yoked with such people. So that's where the safety is. When you operate outside of that, now you're in danger. So you're on your own. Just one account in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 5. And this is just one account of many of people who deviate from, they're in the heat of the battle, and they deviate from the counselors, their leaders, for their own personal gain. They fail to see the bigger picture, which the bigger picture is triumphing over our enemies so that Jerusalem may be safe. So instead of just following the protocol, they take the opportunity for themselves to try to gather fame for themselves. But that's at a deadly cost. As First Maccabees chapter 5 and 53 says, and Judas gathered together those that came behind and exhorted the people all the way through till they came into the land of Judea. So they went up to Mount Zion with joy and gladness, where they offered burnt offerings, because not one of them were slain until they had returned in peace. So that's good. Now, what time, as Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Galilee, and Simon, his brother in Galilee before Ptolemais, Joseph, the son of Zacharias, and Azarias, captains of the garrisons, heard of the valiant acts and warlike deeds which they have done. Wherefore they said, let us also get us a name, and go fight against the heathen that are round about us. So when they had given charge unto the garrison that was with them, they went towards Gamania, which they shouldn't have did that. So you see, what moved them to do that was an opportunity for, they said, let's also be important. Let's gain a name for ourselves. And this, like I said, this is one of many accounts in the scriptures. The men that stood up against Moses, who the Lord swallowed them up. Acts 5, where it says there rose up Theudas, who proclaiming to be somebody. The Lord took them out. That's why he said, wherefore, if it's the will of man, it's going to fall. Because you just followed the protocol. Vocab is obviously trying to infiltrate in any way possible. You're just going to let them in so that you can feel important. And let's sit down and let's talk. Ain't quote no scripture, just talk. Huh? That's exactly what the devil wants. And you've lowered yourself to allow him to do that so that you can feel important. You just brought even more shame to your house, to Sakari. No Israelite who actually understands what's going on and understands who Vocab is going to praise you at all for that. What are they going to praise you on? We want to give a shout out to Sakari. They held it down. They had to sit down with the devil and they had a peaceful discussion. Nothing's to come out of that but shame. But for that guy, he thinks I'm getting a name for myself. No, what you did is you just put your whole camp, you just compromised your whole camp. But again, this is just to be well spoken of because their leader loves that. Anyway, it goes on to say, so verse 58, so when they had given charge unto the garrison that was with them, they went towards Gamnea. Then came Gorgias and his men out of the city to fight against them because they're like, oh, hey, look at that. These clowns deviated from their course. We needed, Jerusalem we went to war. We didn't have nobody fall because people followed the order. So we gave the Lord the blessings and the praise and the sacrifice because we just went to war and ain't not one of us being slain. That's a very good time. The enemies are like, we need them to slip up. Oh, here come two clowns and their garrisons. Perfect opportunity. Foolish, right? It says, verse 60, and so it was that Joseph and Azarias were put to flight and pursued unto the borders of Judea. And there was slain that day of the people of Israel about 2,000 men. Thus was there a great overthrowing among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient unto Judas and his brethren, but thought to do some valiant act. So whenever you deviate from the course and you operate and you don't take heed to the counselors, which is the scriptures, the man of the Lord, the man of great millstone, the counsel that apostles give, whenever you deviate from that, you are now exposed to the wiles of the devil. Now you're on your own, because in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Safety is in the scriptures where you examine and you learn all the acts of how the enemy seeks to try to overthrow us. And your answer simply should have been that found in the book of Nehemiah and Ezra, which is, you have nothing to do with us. Okay, Vocab isn't some new person that nobody knows about. He done already met with the apostles and elders. He done already met with the elders in Chicago. He done already met several times over with other camps, and already your man several times over. Nothing changed his viewpoint at all. It did not change. You actually believe in this, that him when he says, I don't want you all to burn in the fire, like he's like, I'm trying to help you. That's a damn lie. Are you that stupid? You believe him? Then that just means you're just as gullible, and you don't deserve to be in no seat of no captain, because you can pull a move just like these two men did and put your man in jeopardy. You can't have the foresight and the discernment to see that this man is clearly lying. If he actually cared about people burning in hell, then he would go talk to the so-called Jews. Why don't you ever, he doesn't go and try to talk to the so-called Jew and try to save them from burning in hell. He's never going to talk about that. And I'm willing to bet before you guys agree or meet, you guys agree to certain topics that you won't talk about. And I bet you the topic of the so-called Jew is off the table, because you start talking about that or prophecies and he'll get real uncomfortable. If you said, oh, I just want to save you guys from the fire, I'll say, well, if you really want to save people from the fire, why won't you go and try to save the people who actually call themselves Jews, breaking all the laws in the scriptures, talking about some Judaism where they deny the Messiah? Why don't you ever go to try to sit down and talk to them to pull them out of the fire since you care so much? Because we know it's a bunch of bullshit. So just as it says here, it says, but thought to do some valiant act. You thinking that you're doing something valiant and it's going to cost you. That's why you have no scripture to justify anything you did. That was just simply the will of Sakari. It was the will of Captain Taz. And their leader okayed that. Why? Because he gets something out of it, such as notoriety and to be well spoken of. They are completely operating off the will of man, and that is dangerous. Because you're going outside of the protocol of the scriptures. So now you're susceptible to all the wiles of the devil. Just stick to what's written. All right? Shalom.